This is SelfWork, and I'm Dr. Margaret Rutherford. At SelfWork, we discuss psychological and emotional issues and what you can do about them, whether that's learning self-acceptance, taking action, or seeking therapy or treatment. 10 years ago, I extended the walls of my practice to reach those of you who might already be knowledgeable about mental health treatment, but also to those of you who might say you'd never darken the door of a therapist. And yet, you are here. I'll answer your questions while I invite you to take a few minutes for your own self-work. I've decided that the word seems is an extremely important and valuable word. It speaks to the idea of perspective. Seems to me, it speaks to our ability to mask true motivation, to hide malintent, as well as to question what is presented as reality. I understand it as a protective word, a word that slows thinking down. Welcome to this week's edition of SelfWork. This week, in fact, to be punctual about it, on August the 5th, 2026, the new Ted Lasso series will be released. But I've not seen it at the time of this recording, so I can't talk about it now, obviously. I will have watched it for sure by the time you're listening to this episode. And I can only hope that I'm as happy and moved and excited as I was when I first saw it. There have been plenty of critics. Too sappy. I needed sappy during the pandemic myself. Too careless with the ethics of therapy. Well, frankly, I thought Dr. Sharon was by far the best version of a therapy-client relationship in real life that I've seen on the screen. Too much use of the F word. I do realize that there are people who rarely hear or say or think that word, but they don't live in the world I do, which of course is fine. But today I'm going to talk about how many of the characters eventually get to their backstory. What's behind everyone's curtain of what they seem like or what their lives seem like to others. We hide things because they're painful to have out in the open. They're painful, kept inside as well. But you can fear telling the secret so much or reliving whatever moment you've been hiding that your secret stays buried. But as this series so eloquently shows, secrets have power. Our listener email for today comes after she heard an interview I did and she wanted to reach out. It's kind of interesting, so I thought I'd share it. But first, let's hear from AG1 Next Gen. And have I told you, the new citrus flavor is really good. As the days here in the U.S. grow warmer and fall is still months away, your body needs all the energy and consistency it can get. And AG1 Next Gen can provide just that. You don't have to guess about what new supplement to add to the already mountain of supplements you take. AG1 Next Gen delivers more than 75 ingredients in one simple scoop that supports your immune defense, energy production, and gut health. So there's no more guesswork and more getting on with life. And they're now easier than ever. Travel packs can go with you wherever your travel takes you, to work, to play, to learn, whatever your journey is about. And they can provide consistency for you even when your summer schedule is all over the place, like mine's going to be. And for someone like me who's staying highly active at 71, that's heaven sent. Visit drinkag1.com/selfwork to get an AG1 flavor sampler and a bottle of vitamin D3 plus K2 free in your welcome kit with your first AG1 subscription. That's a $72 value. That's drinkag1.com/selfwork. During the pandemic, it was my honor to treat many different kinds of people. Some were fighting with an anxiety disorder, which the pandemic was intensely fueling. Some with prior trauma actually handled the pandemic at first better than others. Why? Because they'd been using and practicing skills every day that helped them avoid being re-traumatized. Things like, how is this rationally different than when I was in Afghanistan? Or avoiding catastrophizing. This is the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me or to us or my kids. It was a very hard time. Maybe some of you even lost people you loved. And it was even harder for those who already had it hard. Again, many people lost their lives. But catastrophizing about it wasn't going to help. I also treated medical professionals whose jobs were to work in the hospitals and clinics where effective protective equipment was limited or not available. ERs where patients had waited too long to come for help and whose symptoms were already worsening and worsening quickly. The doctors were holding the hands of those who were dying instead of their loved ones being able to be there. And those docs and nurses and everyone else tried their best to be present, all the while fighting their own exhaustion, arguing with clinic patients about the value of vaccines, feeling intensely needed but also highly disrespected and even distrusted by those who weren't believing the science, and thus choosing a path that was much more likely to make them or their loved ones sick or dead. And parents trying to protect their children as best they could while playing so many new roles, like teacher, that they'd never really played before. With my own heart condition and age, I was stuck behind a screen trying to help, trying to support and understand the many people who needed an ear and a safe place to talk about their own fear. And then, in August of 2020, along came Ted Lasso. I didn't hear about it for a bit, maybe a month or so, but it didn't take me long to catch up and become a fan. When it was over, I think I watched the season over again to pick up on the nuances I hadn't at first. Between that and the much rowdier Bridgerton, we could all be distracted for a bit. As I said in the intro, there were many critics to sappy, questionable ethics in a former therapist for Ted and his ex. Not funny, too much cussing. But as I said, I needed sappy for sure. I needed to cry. I needed to laugh. I needed sappy. I've seen and read lots of versions of the therapy relationship through the years, and the one between Ted and Dr. Sharon was about as real and good as it gets, even down to making sure she would be getting paid for her time so as not to confuse it with other relationships. But as a particular scene where the good doctor is watching Ted's footballers, she's jumping up and down on the bed. For you see, just because therapists have to keep appropriate boundaries clear, therapists are different than friends. That doesn't mean that we don't care. We do. I loved that about it as well. But what I loved most about Ted Lasso, perhaps because I just published a book about the cost of secrets, perfectly hidden depression, we learn over time that many of the characters' external way of being, the way each of them presented in public, was hiding or masking or camouflaging something from their past that was highly charged for them. But the path the script follows isn't meant for shock value. I didn't hear one backstory that wasn't believable or somehow seemed to be exaggerated just to make it worse. No backstory was told to excuse or somehow make someone's behavior not their responsibility. That's what people say who want to criticize recognizing something painful in your past that's affecting your now or your present. You're wanting people to see you as a victim, that you're not responsible for who you are now. In fact, quite the opposite. By sharing something with another that holds such tremendous pain for you, you're taking ultimate responsibility for it. You're claiming out loud, this happened to me, and by sharing it with you, I'm trying to decrease its power over me. I'm tired of it. But there's no magic potion here. There's no tell it and it will be gone type of thing. But sharing what has been living rent-free in your mind, in your gut, in your spirit for maybe years, something that's been plaguing your life, can feel like a huge release. It's taking the responsibility to own or to claim that you know its powers and that you're doing what you can about it, even when it means you may need to share it with someone else, a therapist, a trusted friend. Let's take Ted's secret, for example. When we are meeting Dr. Sharon, the team's therapist or mental health advisor, we hear Ted mock her at first, sarcastically pointing out that although she says she's being truthful and open, that she's charging by the hour, but how come sessions are only 50 minutes? Isn't she ripping her clients off? Ted's not interested in therapy, thank you. Yet her quiet and steady presence, along with how Ted actually begins to see her help others, helps him realize her worth and her safety, much more importantly. Gradually, as we learn that Ted has panic attacks, we see her offer help. He takes it bit by bit. But when, at the end of the second season, an intense panic attack emerges for him, he calls for her help. He was preparing to go to his boss's father's funeral. So Dr. Sharon assumes that it's the funeral part of it that's triggering his anxiety. She knows his father is dead. When she arrives, he decides to talk about the fact that at age 16, he heard his dad shoot and kill himself as they were both home, and he rushed in and found his dad's body. He'd been angry at his dad ever since, and that was the trigger for the panic. And so Sharon listens. The story isn't revealed to somehow shock the audience. It's told to help all of us understand that life can happen to us. Trauma can happen to you. We don't really know what's happening the rest of every day, and those things can have and do have an effect on us in the present, in the now. He's never truly grieved his father's suicidal death. And the cockeyed optimism he developed? For example, Ted says things like, "be a goldfish" to one of his players after that player made a bad move, rather than "just don't think about it." Why? Ted informs the player, goldfish have 10-second memories, so be a goldfish. So the wackiness of Ted's humor is likely a coping strategy to avoid further pain. It's not that it's not sincere or genuine, but it serves more than one purpose. He kind of detaches from any anger, from any sadness, and that's become a life skill for him. So let's take a break, and we'll be back in just a moment. But something that may be influencing your choices, or the reason you're choosing what you are, can be quite known to you, but you're hiding it from the world. Like the owner of the football team, again, that's Rebecca, wanting revenge on her ex. That plan backfires many times as Ted's attitude of belief in his desire to help each of his team members to become the best versions of themselves thwarts that plan. Rebecca eventually comes clean with Ted, and he forgives her. You see, her ex used to own the team, and that ex really hurt her, so she wanted revenge. And remember, Ted forgives her. He avoids anger, right? Even Dr. Sharon herself had a secret, or something she didn't want others to know. She'd had a terrible bike accident and now has great difficulty accepting help from others after being so dependent for so long. And the seemingly kind of crazy Coach Beard, Ted's best friend, was indeed quite lost. He had a terrible drug addiction problem, stole from people, ended up in prison, and Ted gave him a huge chance to be who he had the potential to be. And so we see that Coach Beard, offering the same chance to someone else, someone who'd also made horrible decisions, and that was Nate. I've decided, as a therapist for over 30 years, that the word seems is an extremely important and valuable word. It speaks to the idea of perspective. Seems to me. It speaks to our ability to mask true motivation, to hide malintent, as well as to question what is presented as reality. I understand it as a protective word, a word that slows thinking down, recognizing that what seems to be may not be real. I've said many times, trust is earned. The more you experience that what seems to be turns out to be real, then trust grows. Or trust in your own judgment, maybe not trusting someone else. There's something about watching someone grapple with hurt from the past that's very meaningful, and it can show you the way. I hope if you choose to watch season 4 or any of the seasons before it, that they'll help you find your own courage to turn around, look something straight in the eye that's been haunting you, that you've kept a secret, and decide to loosen its grasp over you by sharing it, by talking about it, instead of living it out as a secret. Whatever's behind your curtain, you're going to pull that curtain, maybe very slowly at first, but you're going to see and deal with what's behind it. Here's a question from a woman who'd listened to one of the interviews I've done, and I happen to love her question, so I thought I'd share it. She says, "Good morning. Just got back from a morning walk where I listened to your episode on the Heal Your Heartbreak podcast. Admittedly, I've never read your book or listened to the TED Talk. I have now added it to my list. So I realize you may address this question in one of those channels. Your message, however, of perfectly hidden depression hit home. On the podcast, you touch on asking for help. Reflecting on my own journey, there have been moments where I've asked for help, whether professionally or personally, and that request fell on deaf ears. It takes courage to ask for help, and when it's ignored, it makes it harder to move forward. This entire time I've received this lack of response to asking for help as a lack of care. But now I'm starting to question if it's because my ask for help was being received as a in-the-moment emotion and not that I'd gotten to a place where I actually needed someone's help. I found it hard for my spouse, coworkers to reach a point where they realize the perfect person may truly need help too. I couldn't agree with this woman more." And she says, "Looking forward to listening to your podcast on my next walk." So if you're listening right now, hi. Glad you're here. So I wrote her back. "I'm so glad to hear from you. You're asking something that I do cover in the book and workbook, but I'm happy to explain. If you've lived a life that seems perfect to others, if you've been uber responsible, organized, pretty tightly emotionally controlled, then other people around you believed you. They believed that you really didn't need many people, maybe even counted on you being that way. For you to say, 'Sometimes I really struggle too,' doesn't compute for many of them. I've had people tell me that they'll try to share something and are simply not believed. I myself have panic disorder, but upon meeting me and even knowing me for a while, you'd likely not know it. And when I've tried to share it, frequently people don't believe me. So it may be that this listener has so perfected her need no help image that people don't really hear her when she's truly asking for help. Now, it's also true that good givers attract good takers. So I don't know if that's a factor. Maybe she's attracted really good takers who count on her to provide for them, but have no real interest in providing help to her. So if she tried to convey something that was discounted, then it could be that that person doesn't have the capability of understanding how what seems may not be what is. Or for some reason that's about them, they don't get it. But it's so important to feel known. I hope you'll try to think of someone who you trust and try again. Maybe even start out with something like, I've put a lot of effort into looking as if I don't deal with insecurity or whatever like other people do. But I don't want to do that anymore. Kind of let the other person in on what's behind your curtain. As we talked about, we were talking about the word seems in this episode, and many people blindly believe what they see. They don't give much attention to what could lie underneath that external facade. So it may take a little effort. It may take a little explanation. You certainly want to make sure that you'd seen this person handle other confidences well, and so that you can trust them. When I'm training clinicians in perfectly hidden depression, I frequently play a voicemail that I got from a young woman who had heard me talk about perfectly hidden depression, but she sort of resisted the idea that that could be part of her makeup. Finally, after about 2 years, she bought the original book, and she said she just found herself in every page. But she had been in therapy, and so she took the book with her to therapy and said, "This is who I am. This is me. This describes me to a T." And her therapist looked at her and said, "You are not depressed. You don't fit criteria." That's the mistake the mental health industry is making. Research shows over and over again that when perfectionism is present, it changes how depression looks a lot. So any of you who are listening who might have had this same experience as this listener did, I hope you'll try again, because it's real and because it's important and you are important. And it's so important to feel connected. As always, thank you for being here. I know you have a choice, and I'm glad SelfWork was your choice today. And let me know how you feel about Ted Lasso at AskDrMargaret at drmargaretrutherford.com. I'd love to hear from you. I have one more question to ask all of you today. I'm trying to think of a way where you and I could have more contact. I can't do therapy with everybody who listens, but I'm trying to think of a way that maybe I could listen to more of your stories and then respond to those. So if you can think of a way, email me at AskDrMargaret at drmargaretrutherford.com, or you can get onto my website and contact me there. It has a contact link. I so enjoyed Arizona last week. It was hot, and then it was hot again. But what was even more warm was the welcome that I received from the Yavapai mental health community. Thank you so much for having me. As always, take care of yourself, your loved ones, and your community. I'm Dr. Margaret, and this has been SelfWork.